Welcome to episode 101 of the Lone Hockey Podcast, and we're going to talk about Sidney Crosby's 1600th career NHL point that happened last night against Buffalo. And so, with Crosby, we obviously know he's a well-renowned talent ever since being drafted 2005. But what really stands out the most to me in his game is his consistency and how much and how consistent he can be all the time in his overall play. This is two-way play, this is offensive play, being able to set up teammates, whatever it may be. There's always a situation that arises where he's able to be the difference maker. And he showed that yesterday. One of the fastest players ever in NHL history to reach 1,600 career points, which is really impressive. And I believe the first since Jaromir Jagr over a decade ago to reach that mark. And so he's obviously a tremendous player. That's enough said about that. But I wanted to talk about what happened with the points yesterday and how he's able to score because it was really cool because he was able to get that milestone first, and then Evgeny Malkin was able to score his 500th career NHL goal, and two really unique milestones in one night, and two players that have been around the team for quite some time. So it's fitting that they're both able to reach their respective marks in the same game. And so with Malkin and Crosby having those two simultaneously be able to gather milestones was really cool. So in talking about Crosby, what really stood out on his assists yesterday is the sequence leading up to it. And initially, so it was a regroup sequence because the puck had to come back outside the zone because of delayed offside. So Crosby ended up getting high stick. So he got high stick. He had to move back to the point and skate outside the zone so that way they could regroup and reset. And he got high sticked pretty brutally, actually, it looked like. It wasn't an intentional high stick or anything like that, but he works his way out of the zone, he gets back, he controls himself, and then he's able to track back and be able to efficiently get back on Alex Tuck. And so on the track back scenario, what's really unique is how he's able to execute. And I'm trying to do this in a way that's because it's hard to do without video sometimes, and it's hard to describe it. But I'm going to try my best to articulate it. So on the track back scenario, what he was able to do is he was able to stay and maintain a lower center of gravity. So this allowed him to maintain his base, maintain his stance, and then he was able to on the track back scenario, cut through the hands of Alex Tuck and be able to go under over essentially. So under over is actually a really effective technique when tracking because the player is able to stay lower to the ice. They're able to more easily find ways of stripping the puck because they're able to they could go around them, they could go through them, they could go through the hands, and there's different leverage points you can weaponize when it comes to being able to track back by going under over instead of over under. Because if you're going over under, you might have to use a little bit more energy to try and get around the attacking player, try to cut through the hands. So under over is a really effective technique. And then you look at how he was able to execute on it. He not only goes under over, but by going and doing that, by being able to go over, allows, and in this sense, in this case scenario, it forced Tuck to come off balance and his hands were forced higher. So that negated his ability to actually handle the puck in the scenario because his hands were forced higher and then his center of gravity and his balance were thrown off in entirety. So because of that, Crosby was able to get underneath him and then strip the puck free and go stick on puck. It's the most efficient way of trying to track, especially when you're trying to get a stick on puck sequence. It's the most efficient way of trying to defend the blue line nowadays too, is stick on puck defending. And with Crosby, especially in track back scenarios, you're not trying to go for physicality all the time. You're just trying to go for the puck and you're trying to strip the puck free so that way you can create a transition sequence going back the other way as soon as possible. Crosby does that in that scenario. And then on the offensive zone entry, he facilitates by going up the middle and then uses a backhand pass because he realizes Malkin is available on his backside. And he did it without even looking at the play. It was an instinctive read. He knew he was there. He knew he was in middle ice, and he was able to read it so effortlessly. Malkin was able to, he shot once, but it ended up being blocked. He shot off his own rebound, that being the second shot. and that shot went on net. And then Brian Rust was sitting at the back door, and he was able to tap it in off that loose rebound. And which is a testament to how Crosby is able to play because he plays so controlled, so fluid. He plays with a lot of rhythm and structure and poise. And the track back leading to the transition offense in here was so good. And eventually he would score in overtime too. Very fitting way to end his night, not only with the assist, but also the goal and the game winning goal of all things. So I love watching him play because he's a player that, to me, arguably the best in the league. I would say from an overall perspective, he's the best in the league. There's so many other players who are elite in the NHL and they're almost half his age or a decade younger than him. And Crosby's nearing 40 and he's still maintaining this over point per game pace, which is absolutely unbelievable. But it's a testament to what he's able to do and how he's able to maintain his routine and the efficiency in his routine and be able to perform at a high level, especially nearing 40 years old, which is remarkably impressive. And I don't believe there's ever been a season where he's been under a point per game. He's always been over. So that really stands out because a guy who's been that consistent for that long, I could talk all day about his consistency. This would take longer than a podcast episode, but he's so unique in that sense. And it's rare to find players that are able to do that and rare to find players that are able to be that consistent all the time because it's so easy to get thrown on a routine, but Crosby never seems that way for him. So he's always fun to watch. And I like watching him and learning from him defensively, especially through track back scenarios. One of the better trackers in the league still at being able to maintain close gaps, at being able to cut through the hands of guys, negate stick impact, and negate puck skill impact from opponents. And he's really effective being able to strip pucks so effortlessly. And one of the best in the league in the modern day at doing it. There's many other players who are elite at doing it now and have found more efficient ways of doing it. But at the same time, Crosby's still maintaining that. He's still maintaining that consistency in how he's doing it individually. And so a lot of these habits he's ingrained in his game ever since being a young player, still has a lot of them today, which is really remarkable. So really fun player to watch, really cool milestone there he's able to accomplish, and it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out for him and the Penguins.